Chris Farley lit up every room he walked into. Loud, funny, wild. He was the kind of guy who could make an entire crowd laugh without saying a word. From Saturday Night Live to Tommy Boy, he became one of the most loved comedians of the 90s. But behind the laughs was a man in pain. Fame came fast, and so did the pressure. His battles with addiction and insecurity followed him everywhere. And when he made his return to SNL, just weeks before his death, something felt off. It wasn't the same Farley. Join us as we look back at Chris Farley's heartbreaking final SNL appearance and what it revealed. The Boy from Wisconsin. Chris Farley was born on February 15, 1964, in Madison, Wisconsin. He came from a big Irish-American family and grew up in a town called Maple Bluff. His father, Thomas, owned an oil company, and his mother, Mary Ann, stayed at home to take care of the kids. Chris had 4 siblings, including Tom Jr., Kevin, John, and Barbara. Interestingly, his cousin Jim would later become the CEO of Ford Motor Company. Chris went to Catholic schools in Madison, including Edgewood High School. He was a religious person, and according to his friend Joel Murray, he never missed Mass. In the summer, he went to Red Arrow Camp, where he was both a camper and a counselor. Chris attended Marquette University and graduated in 1986. He studied communications and theater and also played rugby. It was there that he truly discovered his love for comedy. After college, Chris worked for a short time with his father at the family oil business, but his heart was elsewhere. He joined the Arc Improv Theater in Madison to learn comedy. Later, he moved to Chicago and performed at Improv Olympic. This led him to Second City, a famous comedy theater. He started in their touring group and later joined the main stage. He performed in several popular revues and started gaining real attention. His start was humble, but his talent stood out, and soon, bigger things were waiting for him. Saturday Night Live and the rise of a comedy star. In 1990, Chris Farley got the big break he had been dreaming about. He joined the cast of Saturday Night Live, SNL. He wasn't alone. Chris Rock also joined that season. Farley quickly found his place among a group of young comedians who would become stars. He worked closely with Adam Sandler, Tim Meadows, Rob Schneider, and David Spade. Together, they were known as the Bad Boys of SNL. Farley created many memorable characters. One of the most famous was Matt Foley, the loud and clumsy motivational speaker who lived in a van down by the river. That character was actually created by Bob Odenkirk during their time at Second City. The name Matt Foley came from one of Farley's close friends who became a priest. Farley would sometimes use random names depending on who was in the audience. But once his friend came to the show, Farley stuck with that name. The way Matt Foley moved and talked came from Chris's own life. He used movements from his rugby days, his father's angry voice, and his high school football coach's squatting pep talks. It was all a mix that made the character unforgettable. Other funny characters included Todd O'Connor, the Chicago sports fan from Bill Swirsky's Superfans, the Chippendales dancer in that legendary sketch with Patrick Swayze, a teenage girl working at a Gap store, and even a lunch lady paired with Adam Sandler's music. On Weekend Update, he played Bennett Brower, a man who shared his awkward personal habits using air quotes. And then there was The Chris Farley Show, a fake talk show where he nervously asked celebrities weird questions. It was hilarious because it felt so real. He also did funny impressions of celebrities like Tom Arnold, Meat Loaf, Rush Limbaugh, Jerry Garcia, and even Newt Gingrich. But off-screen, Farley was just as wild. He was known for playing pranks with Adam Sandler late at night. They made prank calls, mooned cars, and once even defecated out a 17th floor window. Chris Rock once joked that he probably saw Farley's private parts more than Farley's girlfriend did. But not everyone was happy with Farley's behavior. In 1995, Both he and Adam Sandler were fired from SNL. Still, Chris had made his mark, and Hollywood was calling. From Saturday Night Live fame to Hollywood star. Even while on SNL, Chris Farley was appearing in movies. He had small roles in Wayne's World, Coneheads, Airheads, and even Billy Madison. He also appeared in the Red Hot Chili Peppers music video Soul to Squeeze, which was part of the Coneheads soundtrack. But after leaving SNL, he started focusing more on films. His first big success came with Tommy Boy, where he starred alongside his close friend David Spade. The movie made over $32 million and became a cult classic. Fans loved the mix of heart and humor, and Farley was praised for his performance. Next came Black Sheep, also with Spade. Though it didn't do as well, it still brought in good money and had fans. Farley was now seen as a bankable star, so he got the lead role in Beverly Hills Ninja. The film opened at #1 at the box office, proving that Farley could carry a movie on his own. But not everything was perfect. Farley didn't like Black Sheep. The script was only half finished when the studio gave it the green light. He felt it was just trying to repeat the success of Tommy Boy without much heart. That disappointment hit him hard. On the night of the premiere, he relapsed. He had to go back to rehab before starting work on Beverly Hills Ninja. Despite the struggles, Chris kept going, but time was catching up with him. Chris Farley was full of energy. His laugh was loud, his movements wild, and his comedy completely fearless. But behind all of that was a man dealing with deep personal pain. His fame brought pressure, and he tried to cope with it in unhealthy ways. Friends and co-stars saw the changes. His wild behavior wasn't just for laughs. The jokes off-screen often went too far. His body started showing the toll of his lifestyle. In the Chris Farley Show sketch, where he nervously fumbled through interviews, he wasn't playing a character too far from himself. The real Chris also struggled with self-doubt, anxiety, and trying to be liked. After filming Beverly Hills Ninja, Farley tried to stay focused, but his health was failing. The unfinished projects. Chris Farley was working on many exciting projects before his sudden death. One of the biggest was the animated movie Shrek. Farley had already recorded most of his lines, about 85% of the voice work. The character of Shrek was written to match Farley's personality more closely. After he passed, the studio thought about using someone to copy his voice. They even asked his brother John, who sounded a lot like him. But John said he couldn't do it. It was too painful. So in the end, Mike Myers took over the role and re-recorded everything. Farley was also supposed to voice a character in Dinosaur 2000. He was going to play a young, huge dinosaur named Sorbus, who was scared of heights. But after Chris died, the character was rewritten as an older female dinosaur and voiced by Joan Plowright instead. He had more movie plans too. He was talking with Vince Vaughn about doing a film called The Gelfin. He was also interested in playing the lead in a movie about Fatty Arbuckle, a silent film star. That script was being written by David Mamet. Farley was once supposed to play Jim Carrey's role in The Cable Guy, but timing didn't work out. Farley was also offered a part in Kingpin, but had to turn it down because of his deal to make Black Sheep. He was going to be in Ghostbusters 3, where a new team of Ghostbusters was supposed to deal with overpopulation in hell. Chris was also wanted for a live-action version of Captain Underpants, and for a Confederacy of Dunces. Sadly, all of these projects were never made with him, and there were more. Farley was even considered for the incomparable Atuk, a project that was never finished. That role has been linked to actors like John Belushi and John Candy, who also passed away before the film could be made. Some people say the project is cursed. Farley was even written into the early drafts of Grown Ups, a comedy that came out in 2010. After his death, Kevin James took the role. Just 2 months before he passed, Farley spoke to David Spade about doing a third film together. Director Steven Surgic had even developed a script for a movie called Tree. It would have followed a White House worker who goes looking for a Christmas tree and teams up with a quirky truck driver. It was a perfect setup for Farley and Spade. But like many of his dreams, it never got made. Farley's career was on the rise, and new opportunities kept coming his way. But while the world saw a rising star, behind the scenes, something much darker was unfolding. Chris Farley's pain behind the laughs and battle with addiction. Chris Farley made people laugh all over the world, but few knew how much pain he was carrying inside. He battled addiction and mental illness for years. Though he looked happy on the outside, he was struggling on the inside every single day. From a young age, Chris was bullied for being overweight. Kids called him cruel names like Tubby and Fatso. To protect himself, he started making fun of his own weight before others could. Comedy became his shield. Even as an adult, that pain never really left him. One of the harshest moments came from an unexpected source. Larry Flynt, the man behind Hustler magazine, once said to Farley that he was glad someone made it in Hollywood who never finished going through puberty. It was a mean comment that stuck with Chris. Chris also had deep fears. He believed that if he lost weight, he might stop being funny. He worried that his movies would flop, and he wouldn't be able to keep working. And when people stopped laughing, he said the silence was terrifying. He was also afraid of never finding love. He wanted to settle down and have a family, but he didn't know if it would ever happen. He lived with all these worries while trying to make people laugh. And that wasn't easy. Chris Farley's addiction was a serious part of his life. He struggled with many substances, including cocaine, heroin, alcohol, marijuana, mushrooms, and even food. He tried many times to get better. He went to Overeaters Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, and several rehab centers. He even joined weight loss programs. In just 2 years, Chris went to treatment at least 17 times, but each time he tried, he ended up relapsing. His work was the one thing that helped him stay clean. When he was filming, the studios would watch him closely. They had to protect their investment. During Almost Heroes, he had to attend AA meetings. When he was lined up to do Shrek, he was being watched 24/7. Still, when the cameras stopped rolling, Chris often fell back into bad habits. He wanted to change. He knew he needed help, but addiction is a tough battle, and Chris couldn't beat it alone. The people who tried to save him. Chris Farley wasn't alone in his struggles. Many people around him saw what was happening and tried to help. His old friends from Saturday Night Live cared deeply about him. Lorne Michaels, Dan Aykroyd, David Spade, and Tom Arnold all made efforts to get Chris clean. Even his manager stepped in. They saw how addiction was taking over his life. They knew the man behind the jokes needed real help. His problems were no secret. They even affected his time at Saturday Night Live. The show's producer, Lorne Michaels, had dealt with something similar in the past when John Belushi went through the same issues. So when Farley started using, Michaels gave him a warning. He told Chris that if he didn't get help, he would be kicked off the show. His management team, Brillstein Gray Entertainment, also tried to help. Bernie Brillstein sent him to rehab many times, but Chris couldn't stay clean. In 1997, people started to see a real change in him. His health was getting worse. That same year, he made a guest appearance on Nickelodeon's show All That. While he still smiled and showed up, the energy just wasn't there. He was out of breath and didn't do much physical comedy. People noticed. Later that year, on October 25th, Farley hosted Saturday Night Live for the first time. In the opening sketch, Lorne Michaels joked that Farley might not be able to handle it. Tim Meadows played the friend defending him, saying, "His party days are over." Chevy Chase was cast as Farley's sponsor in the skit. But behind the jokes, there was some truth. Farley had hurt his vocal cords during rehearsals. His voice was hoarse, and his face looked red and tired. The show almost got canceled because he looked so worn out. It was hard to watch. He had already been in and out of rehab 17 times by then. But despite all their efforts, Chris kept returning to drugs and alcohol. It was heartbreaking. Work gave him structure. On set, there were rules and people watching. Off set, it was a different story. He didn't have that same support. The moment the spotlight turned off, the darkness came back. In the end, Farley was a man who gave everything to make people laugh, but he couldn't escape the pain he carried. Even when surrounded by love and support, the battle inside him was too strong. He had dreams, talent, and people who cared. But sometimes, that's not enough. His life reminds us how deeply someone can hurt, even while making the world laugh. The final days of Chris Farley. Not long before he died, it seemed like Chris was trying to turn things around. He spent some time at the Hazelden Detox Center in Minneapolis. He went to church and even started getting ready for the holidays. His friend Jillian Seeley said Chris was excited about his movie, Almost Heroes. But the good times didn't last. On December 14, 1997, Chris went out drinking again. He was seen bar hopping and using drugs. 4 days later, on December 18th, he died in his apartment in the John Hancock Center in Chicago. He was just 33 years old. His younger brother, John, found him. An autopsy showed that Chris had taken a mix of cocaine and heroin, a combination known as a speedball. His body also had traces of marijuana. The doctors also found he had a serious heart problem. His arteries were clogged, which made things even worse. Chris's final hours were sad and lonely. He was with a call girl who took pictures of him after he collapsed. She also stole his watch and left behind a note. Chris's last words were heartbreaking. He told her, "Don't leave me." Chris Farley's funeral was held on December 23, 1997. It took place at Our Lady Queen of Peace Catholic Church in his hometown, Madison, Wisconsin. Over 500 people came to say goodbye. The church was filled with comedians and actors who had worked with Chris. Some of the well-known names included Dan Aykroyd, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, Lorne Michaels, Al Franken, John Goodman, Bob Odenkirk, Tim Meadows, Norm Macdonald, and Phil Hartman. But someone was missing: David Spade. Farley's close friend and longtime comedy partner didn't attend. This led to rumors that they had a falling out, but Spade later said that wasn't true. He just couldn't bring himself to go. It was too much for him emotionally. There was another service held later on January 13, 1998, at St. Monica Catholic Church. Chris was laid to rest at Resurrection Cemetery in Madison. The man who made millions laugh was gone, but he was remembered by everyone who loved him. His final appearance on SNL, which aired just weeks before his death, left fans shocked. The energy was different. He looked tired, and some parts of the show felt forced. For those who knew him well, it was hard to watch. Chris Farley's final night at SNL. Chris Farley returned to host Saturday Night Live on October 25, 1997. This would become his last appearance on the show. At first glance, the episode looked like a regular SNL night, but something felt off. Many sketches from that night are missing today, especially the ones that featured Farley the most. Even Tina Fey's first ever sketch was removed from the streaming version. 4 full sketches were cut. Behind the scenes, the producers were unsure if Farley could handle hosting the show. His health was getting worse, and his struggles with drugs and alcohol were no secret. Lorne Michaels secretly brought in Chris Rock, just in case Farley couldn't go on. Rock was ready to step in if needed. The week leading up to the show was full of backup plans. When Farley finally stepped on stage, it was clear he wasn't well. He looked sweaty and out of breath. His voice was hoarse from pushing too hard during rehearsal, and he seemed exhausted before the episode even began. Watching it now feels emotional. You can see a man trying to give it his all, but also breaking down. The episode began with a sketch that felt more real than funny. Tim Meadows, a longtime cast member and Farley's friend, is shown talking to Lorne Michaels. Michaels is unsure if Chris can handle the night. Meadows promises that Chris is calm, focused, and ready. That's when Farley walks in and starts begging to host. He even throws himself to the floor in a classic Farley pratfall, hoping it will change Michael's mind. Then comes the joke. Chevy Chase, another former SNL star who also battled addiction, is Farley's sponsor. But this wasn't just a funny sketch. It was based on real concern. Farley's health was so bad during rehearsal that the producers almost canceled the entire show. The cold open felt like a warning wrapped in comedy. After the opening credits roll, there's another moment that shows how shaky things were. Farley doesn't walk out for his monologue. Instead, we see him lying on a couch in Anna Gasteyer's dressing room, eating grapes. Gasteyer looks disgusted when she hears it used to be Farley's old dressing room. That little joke holds a lot more weight now, knowing what Farley was going through. When Farley finally appears on stage, he's joined by Meadows and Chris Rock. Both are ready to take over if Farley can't go through with the show, but Farley wants to host. He loved SNL more than anything. It was his dream job. He pushed himself to be there that night, no matter how he felt. But throughout the episode, it's hard to miss the signs. Farley stumbles over his lines. He looks winded. Even his big, loud characters don't get the same laughs. Instead of roaring laughter, there are moments of silence. It's as if the audience can sense something is wrong. One of the most painful sketches to watch is when he brings back his famous character, Matt Foley. In the sketch, Farley has to ride a stationary bike. At one point, he chugs a pot of coffee, then suddenly stops. He looks distressed. It doesn't feel like part of the joke. Norm Macdonald, who was also on SNL at the time, later said he was upset that Farley had to do so much physical comedy that night. He thought it was too much. During the Weekend Update, Norm even made a joke to give Farley a moment to catch his breath. After one joke didn't land, Norm told the audience, "Laugh anyway. It helps Farley get a little rest." That line says a lot about what everyone around Farley was feeling. Sketches that were cut and forgotten. Some of the sketches that aired live that night are now gone from the official version of the episode. It's unclear why they were removed, but their absence leaves out a big part of Farley's final night. One sketch matched Farley with Molly Shannon, who played Mary Catherine Gallagher. Both were known for wild, over-the-top physical comedy. But while Shannon was crashing into walls with her usual energy, Farley's movements felt slower and cautious. Still, the moment where the two share a shy little dance before the chaos breaks loose was touching. It showed the softer side of both characters, and of Farley himself. Another sketch had Farley playing Hank Williams Jr., also known as Bocephus. He slurred his words, acted wild, and got judged by sound technicians. But then came a moment of calm. Farley, as Bocephus, defends himself and his friends. For a second, we saw the gentleness in Farley that was always just under the surface. It stood out in a night filled with loud jokes and big falls. There was also a sketch written by Tina Fey, her first ever on SNL. In it, Farley plays a giant baby wearing a shirt and underpants. He stomps around and even rips the arms off of Meadows, who plays a doctor. The idea was simple slapstick. Farley loved that kind of humor, but it's hard to miss how uncomfortable he might have felt. David Spade once said the famous Chippendales sketch where Farley danced shirtless left a deep scar on him. Farley always feared people only laughed at his size. And in this sketch, too, his body became the joke. Still, Farley brought joy to that performance. His face lit up. It was silly, sure, but it was the kind of silly he loved. A sad echo of his idol. Chris Farley looked up to John Belushi, one of the original stars of SNL. Farley even said he wanted to be like him. But their lives ended in the same tragic way. Both died at age 33. Both had drug problems. Both had big hearts, big talent, and couldn't escape their demons. Farley's return to SNL felt like a dream come true for him. But watching it now feels like watching a goodbye. There were too many jokes about his health, his body, and his addictions. It wasn't just a comedy show, it was a man trying to hold on. Producer Lorne Michaels did try to help. He had already warned Farley during his time as a cast member. He even suspended him from the show and demanded he go to rehab. This time, he brought in Rock as a backup, showing that he didn't want to take any chances. Bob Odenkirk, who wrote the Matt Foley sketch with Farley, wasn't always a fan of Michaels. But even he admitted that Lorne truly cared about Farley's health. He wanted him to be okay more than he wanted a good episode. In the end, watching that night's episode means watching someone you care about struggle in real time. Farley gave everything he had. He smiled, danced, shouted, and fell down. But it was clear that his body couldn't keep up. Many of the jokes were aimed at his issues: the heart attacks, the overexertion, the references to his addiction. It was all played for laughs, but there was a sadness behind it. Even the audience didn't laugh the way they used to. Chris Farley wanted to make people happy, hosting SNL. One last time was his way of doing that. He got to be on the stage he loved, with friends he trusted. But behind the cheers and the lights, the struggle never stopped. He tried to be the old Farley, the loud one, the funny one. But even as he powered through every sketch, the pain was there. It showed in his face, in his breath, in his silence. That night was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a warning, one that came too late. The legacy Chris Farley left behind. Chris Farley's life, career, and tragic death have often been compared to his idol John Belushi. Both were known for their wild humor, loud personalities, and painful struggles with addiction. And just like Belushi, Farley died at age 33 from a drug overdose. But Farley's story didn't end there. On August 26, 2005, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was the 2,289th star and was placed in front of I.O. West, a comedy theater where Farley once performed. His brother Tom Jr. also co-wrote a book about him called The Chris Farley Show, giving fans a deeper look into his life. Farley was remembered in music, too. The Red Hot Chili Peppers included his name in their 1999 song Purple Stain, with the lyrics, "Farley is an angel, and I can prove this." In 2015, a TV documentary about his life aired. It was called I Am Chris Farley. A year later, another special titled Autopsy. The last hours of Chris Farley was shown on the Reels channel. His best friend, Adam Sandler, never forgot him either. In 2018, Sandler wrote a touching song about Farley. He performed it during his Netflix special 100% Fresh. Later, Netflix shared the song on YouTube to honor the 21st anniversary of Farley's death. In 2019, Sandler sang it again while hosting Saturday Night Live. And now, Farley's story is being brought to the big screen. In April 2024, a biopic was announced. Actor Paul Walter Hauser will play Chris, and the film will be directed by Josh Gad. SNL creator Lorne Michaels is also producing it. New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers bought the rights to the project for $2.5 million. Farley's story is far from forgotten. And while he was a star who made the world laugh, he couldn't escape the sadness inside. His story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. A man who gave his all to make others smile while struggling to hold himself together behind the curtain. Do you think Hollywood could have done more to protect stars like Farley from the pressures of fame? And what's your favorite Chris Farley moment that still makes you smile today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.